Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Beacon Breakdown. As always, I'm Mike, and this week I am joined by,
Garrett.
and he is one of our players on Overwatch Shield and also a senior, so been around the block here.
Yeah, been a while.
Um, First, we're going to take a look at last week's games. A lot of action here for Valpo. Our Smash Bros. Teams played two NECC games, splitting them with a win versus OWU and a loss versus NIU. And then on Saturday in the GOEC, they defeated Baldwin. Pretty good, pretty dominant win for them, and they are actually in first in the GOEC Smash Bros. Standings right now.
Nice.
Taking a look at League of Legends, they defeated DePaul last week in the NECC. Very close, very fun 2-1 series, which I was on stream for alongside Blake. And then on Saturday, they got their first taste of Seawall, which is the official Riot Games college league. And they did take a loss there, but that's kind of what they expect. They really use that experience to kind of learn from it, treat it more like a scrim. Overwatch also had a ton of action in the last week. You guys played four GLEC games. One of them was a forfeit, so you didn't actually play that one. And you also played an NECC game. I mean, talk to me about the whirlwind last week for you guys.
Holy crud. So it was just back to back games, and it's sort of last year it kind of started with that when Overwatch 2 dropped. Our season was kind of cut in half, so we were doing 2 games a night. So it kind of felt like that a lot, where we were just every single practice turned into a game. And that's kind of what it's looked like for the past couple weeks. So we just kind of show up to practice. We're like, oh, we have a game today. Sweet.
Those practices just, turning into games, you can't really tell the difference, which, might be good sometimes. A couple of those games were incredibly close, very
Mm.
fun to watch. In the NECC, you came out on top against Purdue, 3-2. Our director Tristan called it the matchup of the year. What was it like to play in that one?
Oh my gosh. So that was the one we just played, right?
Yes, it was Purdue on Thursday. You guys went to Arctic Peninsula on map 5 there.
Yeah, that was nuts. Playing on the new maps and stuff, that was rough. Um, yeah, we didn't really know entirely what to do, like picks wise, so we just kind of went with what felt good. It's kind of like an emotional game when it's the new maps and stuff, so we tried to stick with what made sense in our minds. And, if anything didn't feel good, we made swaps, and I think that's what really helped us out coming on top.
Yeah, I mean, that was fun to watch on my end. Obviously, anytime you go game 5, it's going to be very intense. Also streamed by the NECC, so a little bit of showcase there to get Valpo out into the larger college world.
We love that.
Your second type matchup was just Saturday, less than 48 hours ago here. You
Yeah.
had the reverse sweep over Marietta. I mean, what was that like down 0-2 to be able to bounce back and kind of change things up?
Yeah. The first game felt close, but then and so we were feeling the energy a little bit. We were excited. Um but then that second game was really rough on the mental for most of our team. Some of our main team wasn't there, so we were already kind of figuring out what to do. But we had played with each other before, so it wasn't like too much of a surprise. But man, that second game was rough. And at that point, there were some players on our team that felt like really lost, like that was kind of it, and that we were basically just playing the graveyard game where we were just kind of waiting until the very end. But man, some of our players really picked it up. Our tank started playing above his level he's usually used to, and it was just awesome to see him pull through. Some of his ults really led to some victories, and from our other DPS, Ben went ham, and I think he won us like 2 fights in that one map, which was really nice. So
Yeah. You specifically had a great moment I remember there, playing the Cassidy. Really big Deadeye coming out in one of those fights there. What is it like, trying to make those plays, I guess?
yeah, I remember specifically one was on Coliseum at the very end. We were kind of solidifying the last win, but obviously there was still a lot of time on the clock, so we needed to confirm winning rather than the payload just getting pushed back towards our like point and starting to get snowballed. So I remember seeing that I had my ult, and I saw like my supports were in the back line, they were full health, and my tank was up kind of half health. I was like, okay, I need to look for something. So I literally asked my whole team. I was like, "Where is the nearest high ground?" And Sam started pinging a little high point above their spawn. So I just like walked all the way up there, and I just hit Q. But I made sure that my supports had the abilities to keep me up that were necessary. So that communication was really key to make anything kind of happen there at that point.
Yeah, very good communication from you guys, digging out of that hole, picking up a big win there, and we'll stay on the lookout for your result tonight as you play, I believe, GVSU Blue in the
Mhm.
NECC. So our last team to mention here, Rocket League, also played two GOEC games this past week. They went 1-1 in those, including a very good 3-0 win over Manchester. Again, a lot of good communication coming in from the team there. That's something that we really push and pride ourselves on is that communication. And a little bit of added news, they did just play not 30 minutes ago here, and they won
Wow,
3 to
nice.
1 against MVNU. So
Congrats to them. That's awesome.
yes, lots of good success there to report. Um, but that kind of wraps up our recap of the past week. So I kind of want to get into a little bit more about you, and tell me, how did you first get into esports here?
Oh my gosh, I got into esports a really long time ago, actually. I remember talking to our director my freshman year. I stayed the week at Valpo. I spent a night, I did the overnight with one of our students, and he was awesome. And he introduced me to some people that were also pretty hard gamers like myself. And one of them had mentioned, he's like, "Oh man, I'm trying to talk to the director of the school right now and like get an esports team started." And he's like really excited to like get something going. So when I ended up signing up for Valpo and I showed up, uh, that same director with my friend were like, "Well, we got a league team now. We got a league team and we got 5 computers in this little space." Um, and that was so cool because I had never played League before, but my way onto the team was because I mentioned to Tristan, our director, that
Yep.
when when I was 14, I was playing Call of Duty Black Ops 3,
Uh-huh.
and I was 55th in the world on the leaderboard. Um, and I think it was because I had like a 65 game win streak on solos or something like that.
Wow. Okay.
So I don't think I did anything other than play that game for that period of my life, but it was fun. It got me into the scene and it taught me a lot of things on an individual level. So I thought I could at least bring something, some kind of knowledge to the team. So I wasn't very good at League, but I think I could bring some team spirit and at least share some experience from what it was like to play against people I had never met before in a competitive setting where things were actually on the line.
Yeah. A little bit more about, playing Call of Duty Black Ops. What were some of those first games, I guess, that you were playing, and like was there a moment where you like, "Hey, I'm pretty good at this. I could maybe try and compete."
Yeah, I think I was playing in a online like privately hosted MLG tournament or something like that. It was that long ago, and me and like 4 other randoms that had met each other online, we ended up playing for like $500 or something, and we ended up winning that whole tournament, but just barely. So that kind of got me into like the scene and like the intensity of like each match becomes its own battle and it all adds up to this conclusion. And I think that between each death or kill, every decision mattering to how the whole team is doing as a whole is something that really inspired me because not only could I improve myself, but I could also contribute to my team, even if they have to improve by themselves. But I can still at least contribute to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's, a lot of good lessons that people learn in those early days. But you've since moved on from Call of
Yeah.
Duty. We're now in Overwatch here. Um, what is it that made you kind of embrace Overwatch as being like your main game here?
I think something really special about not focusing just on mechanics, but also on positioning, because I feel like I wasn't really like a CS:GO nerd a long time ago. I didn't really have a PC that worked, so I was always a console gamer. So it was all about like the accuracy. So I focused on like biologically what made somebody good at aiming in a video game, because you're translating like a psychological technique to physical translation of micro movements in your muscles. So it's nothing major like lifting a deadlift bar in the gym. It's, moving your fingers a fraction of an inch to create this huge movement on your screen. So, like, what does that mean? And for me in Overwatch, it was nice to work on my mechanics because I always loved doing that. But that positioning made it so much more than just like, do I hit the shot? Do I not hit the shot? Like, how can I set myself up so that every single one of my bullets not only matters, but doesn't apply as much pressure? Because I don't have to win the 1v2 in the wide open, getting shot at by everything, when I could play
Yeah.
around a corner and really section off and take those 1v1s rather than trying to fight the whole team at the same time. So I thought that that was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean another big aspect that stands out to me about Overwatch is, how team-based it is. As a primary DPS, you do really have to rely on your tanks and on your supports, to work together. Like you said, you can't really 1v2,
Yeah.
1v3 on your own. I mean, what is it like playing in such a heavily team-based game?
Oh my gosh. It's fun, but it can be frustrating sometimes.
Yeah,
I think that's what I had to learn, is that if one of us is playing really badly, the mentality can spread. But at the same time, if somebody's really positive, it can also inspire others to try. Like, even if they're not feeling good, at least like try to like be there mentally with their team, even if they can't be there like skill wise. Just because like we can be off some days. We're college students. The stress can get to us sometimes, and I think that understanding that and respecting it is important. Um,
yeah. We do have Father Pyro and Chiruro in chat here, so
nice.
no hate to them. Definitely part of the positive elements of the team, right?
Totally, totally. That Chris guy. Oh man.
um, so more specifically, with Valpo, like you said, you started off 5 PCs on the league team. I mean, what kind of changes and transitions have you seen now that you're a senior? You've been with this program almost the whole time here.
Oh my gosh. The community has grown like crazy, like actual wildfire we have spread. Because we went from a little section at the top of the union, like the main building on our campus, to spreading out, taking over the computer lab nearby, and then now we're in our third evolution. We've become gremlins and taken over the basement of the whole main building.
Yep.
So that's really cool. But we couldn't have done it without a lot of really cool partnerships on campus, and especially without the director's help. It's been absolutely nuts. So now we've got so many teams, and it's like I can walk in one day and see new faces, and it's like, oh my gosh, who are you?
Oh man, it really has been, an explosion. And I guess even within the team, what has the atmosphere been like from, hey, we're just 5 guys in this little room to, now we're a real team. We're playing sometimes 4 times a week here.
It feels real. It feels a little bit less like I'm playing Call of Duty in my mom's basement, and more like more like I'm actually being relied upon by people I trust and people that I care a lot about.
Yeah,
So, I don't want to let them down. So I'm always practicing and focusing up and making sure I bring whatever it is that I can offer.
100%. I mean, I think something our director talks about a lot is, making it like it's a real college sport. It's not just a club or some other intramural thing. It's a real competition that you guys come in and put in as much effort as a real sport. So
Yeah.
definitely something good there. Um, a big element that we've talked about a lot is, all these close games, all these game fives, reverse sweeps, and how heavily psychological esports really is. So, what are you doing in those situations, where you're in the deficit or you're on that pivotal game five? What does the team's mentality have to be?
The team's mentality has to be, um, unironically, I think it has to be micro. So like focusing less on the outcome of the game and more of what can I do right now. I think that that's helped me a lot. When I'm in my game, I'm like shaking when I'm selecting my character. I'm like, man, I really want to do my best here. I focus less on what points might be taken, who might be where at what times, what abilities people have, and focus more on what can I do at that very moment. And obviously, I think about all those things, but it's more so the like not zooming out too much helps me with my anxiety a lot while I'm playing the game. Um,
Just kind of focusing on like what's in front of you, I guess, is
oh, I think that's a better way to
yeah,
put it.
yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think everyone has their own thing that they do, right?
Hmm.
Like it's kind of a personal approach you have to
Yeah.
take to how am I gonna perform under this pressure and kind of take that pressure off myself.
Hmm.
So
And also like share that pressure with my teammates. Like I'm not going to worry about my teammate who might be using his ability a little bit incorrectly. Like I'm not going to be thinking about those things because I have to trust that they're doing it for a reason or that they're doing it for their own reason. That inevitably helps the team. So focusing on what I have, what I can do with what I have, and then communicating with my team what I think I can do, I think is what makes it all come together.
yeah, and I mean, like I said, esports so psychological. When you compare it to other sports that are more physical, esports is obviously different, but we do strive to make it a similar experience. But what are some of those differences? I don't know if you have any experience playing other competitive sport, but even without that, what is the comparison there for you?
So I've been rock climbing my whole life.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. So, and in rock climbing, there's a huge, huge, huge mentality aspect that I think actually does apply to esports in some ways. Because when I think I was like 13 or something, I really distinctly remember this competition. We all had to, me and my team had to drive to Georgia to compete in some regional tournament or national tournament in the U.S. So when we all showed up, we were like doing our thing. We had like 4 hours to climb like the hardest routes in the least tries that we could.
Okay, yeah.
Um, and so it's a little bit gross, but like there's one thing you have to do in rock climbing. You have to manage your skin because
Yeah, I
the
can see
holds are
it.
rough. So you just want to be careful. And so knowing when you're going too far and when you could push yourself a little bit more is really important. That way, when you're eventually at the top of something, you can push that extra mile that you need to. And at that specific tournament, I was climbing this really difficult route. I was on my first try, and luckily I ended up getting to the top. But about like 30 seconds before I got to the top, I got stuck and buzzer went off, which effectively means that like time's up, but everybody on the wall can try that time, and then if
Yeah.
they fall, they come off. But nobody else was on the wall. I don't know why. This is like the first time this ever happened, but
Yeah.
like 400 people in this room are just staring at me while I'm on the
Wow.
wall and I'm stuck and I'm tired and my hands don't have any skin left. So I'm like, what do I do? So I did probably the best decision I could have done, and I took my time. I tried to, before I continued, I tried to focus on not what was going on around me, but what I was doing, what I had, and what I could use. So it took me some time. Like it took like a minute or two for me to separate those thoughts. But once I did, I felt like I was good to continue. And I feel like that psychological separation is what helps me in esports as like a conversion.
Yeah, I mean that's an incredible story and very unique. sport. I mean, how did you get into rock climbing in the first place? I have to ask.
Oh my gosh, it's the lamest way ever. My I had I gained kind of a bit of weight as a kid. I was like 6 or 7 and I hadn't really gotten into any sports and I was pretty lazy. So me and my mom were like driving to the grocery store or something. She was asking me, she was like, "Hey, I think it'd be really cool if you got into a sport, made some friends, like, exercise." I was like, "Oh, okay, what sports are there?" And I think my mom literally just looked up like what sports there are. And so she was going through this big long list, like all the way down to like ice skating and like hockey. And we were in Florida, so that wasn't possible.
Yeah.
But she was still going through the list, and eventually she hit rock climbing. I was like, what is that? Like, what is it about rocks? So yeah, I showed up to a team day one time and we climbed some rocks. And it was pretty fun. It was very exhausting. It worked out my whole body and muscles that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And yeah, after that, I was hooked.
So I guess talk to me a little bit more about really what is rock climbing. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of different ideas or versions. I think of the documentary on Netflix where there's the guy free climbing up
Yeah.
the face, but certainly you're doing something in a more regulated environment. I guess what does a rock climbing competition look like?
So the ones that I participate in are called bouldering competitions. I don't usually do lead and I don't really do top rope. But for the sake of conversation, bouldering is when you're not hooked up to a rope and
Okay.
you climb about 10 or 20 feet into the air. And then usually they're like squished difficulty. So usually a difficulty will be drawn out through a really long, like 50 or 80-foot top rope or lead route, and it's supposed to exhaust you. And there are crutches, so there's like one or two parts that are really more difficult than the rest of the route. But bouldering is like if you squish all of the difficulty into this really tiny route. So it's all about like power and focus and technique. Um, so that's why I really like it. And plus, I'm terrified of heights. So
Yeah, definitely a lot safer and a lot more comfortable. Not that far off the ground, so
yeah,
that's very cool. I did not know you were a rock climber. So,
thank you. Yeah.
um, as we're kind of wrapping up here, things are wrapping up for you as well. You
Hmm.
are a senior. Unfortunately, your last hurrah here on this team.
I
But
know.
what are your plans afterwards going forward here?
So not super crazy or interesting, but I am hoping to be a commercial real estate agent.
Okay, yeah,
Hopefully go from sales associate to brokerage. Um, that won't be for a while, but getting into that, I think it'll be fun. I think I want to like change the housing industry in Orlando. I think a lot of stuff is really overdone looking at a lot of numbers, and I don't think that there's a very like human centric like valuation system. So um, yeah, I won't share all of my secrets for how I'll start a business one day,
yes,
but
yeah. Don't leak the industry secrets here, but
nah,
very very cool to hear that. And going back to Florida, a little bit warmer weather, so that'll be nice for you, huh?
yeah, a little hot, but I think I'll get used to it again.
Yes. So we will miss you, but I mean, everyone out there, be sure to tune in. Garrett's got a lot of games left in him still, and a lot of action here for you guys. Maybe even making it to a land tournament here. I
That would
mean,
be so cool. I would
yeah.
love that.
So lots of exciting stuff left in these last few months for you. So excited to see what happens and where it goes. That's kind of going to wrap it up for us. Any last shout outs or things you want to say here?
Um, Shout out to my team, I guess. They're pretty cool, I guess. Chris is still here. You could use some work, but a little better Suzu's, but we'll get there.
Yes, yes, always improving.
Hmm.
Well, thank you very much for joining me on the Beacon Breakdown today. It was good to talk with you and, hear about rock climbing and all kinds of interesting things. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out with me.
Yes. And thank you guys for tuning in. We will not be here next week. There's spring break, so we're getting a little bit time off, but will be here tomorrow at 6 o'clock with a Smash Bros. Stream. So be
Nice.
sure to be here for that. That's going to do it for us for now. This has been the Beacon Breakdown, and thanks for joining us.